Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another session of Cyber Conversations. I'm Kanti. I'm the director for the Cyber Institute. Today, I have with me two of my wonderful cyber leaders, Abigail Bushy and Bella Maxwell. In addition, we have a very special guest with us, Brenda Bjerke. She's a Senior Director of Cybersecurity at Target, and she leads cyber risk management globally. She's responsible for information security policies, training and awareness, and vendor security, and very other complex cybersecurity stuff. She joined Target in 2003. After Target's data breach incident in 2013, Brenda played a very important role in transforming Target's security culture. She serves on the executive leadership team for Target Tech's Diversity Action Committee, and she has a bachelor's of applied business and master's of business administration. She is also a certified information systems security professional, that's a mouthful, which is a CISP certification, and she is also a certified information privacy professional. So both of those certifications very highly recommended and are very, very in demand. So Brenda, thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you so much. You have the floor.
Thank you. And thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be here today. I brought a few slides to show just for some visuals to talk a little bit about who am I and who is Target and what does it look like to work in cybersecurity at Target on a day-to-day basis. So let me pull up those slides. All right, you can see the slides okay? Perfect. And let's see if I can advance them. There we go. So welcome to Cybersecurity. This is some of my favorite photos for some of my different interactions that I've had with team members in different events, internally and externally. So within cybersecurity, we do a lot of work within our own team and lots of partnerships across teams. But cybersecurity is really what we would call a team sport. And by team sport, I mean working across the industry with other companies and other industry organizations so that we can all become better together. And so that's what you'll see in these pictures. So on the upper left is an award that we had at a regional event where our training and awareness program won an award. We have lots of fun activities so that people can understand how to think like a hacker and build up that security culture and awareness across the entire company. Here we had Cyversity is a group that we'll be talking about a little bit, but that's underrepresented and women, where we try to help build up awareness and education and a pipeline to get into cybersecurity. We talk and have different events throughout the year at Cyversity. Then we have a team in India, all the way over across on the other side of the world. And there's a picture in December. And then Executive Women's Forum is another group I'm a member of. And that's a group where we have a lot of different networking and education and mentorship along the way as well. So those are lots and lots of connecting with people is how I would summarize a typical day within cybersecurity for me. But to get into a little more detail on what that looks like on the day-to-day, I want to kind of step back and talk about Target. So I'm sure we all know who Target is. We all shop at Target. But just to kind of tell you from kind of a business lens, Target has over 400,000 team members. And every single team member has to have some level of cybersecurity awareness, because cybersecurity is not just a responsibility of the cybersecurity team. And depending if you're a cashier or you're an engineering developer for software, you might need to know different things, but you will have to understand cybersecurity. And so within cyber risk, it's our role in order to make sure that everyone understands what their role is in cybersecurity and how to get resources that they need in order to do their job well. We have 1,900 stores across the nation, $100 billion company and that's $100 billion in revenue, lots of supply chain centers across the country. And what a lot of people don't know is that we really are a tech engineering shop. And so we don't do a lot of outsourcing of our tooling and our engineering. We do it in-house. And that's part of the reason during the COVID pandemic, for example, we were able to listen to the wants and needs of our guests, and we were able to very quickly and in an agile way, able to deliver on something like order pickup or order drive up. That is something that the guests wanted. They didn't want to kind of come into our stores and wander around during a time of COVID. That was a very scary time for a lot of us. And so we listen to our guests and we pivot depending on what our guests are looking for. And so because we have that engineering talent in-house, we're able to do that with our agile methodologies. So that's something that we're really, really proud of. Having a heck of a time here. Our cybersecurity organization, we really are divided into 3 different teams. And so we can see our kind of purpose here. It's to protect our technology and our information. And we do that by fostering a culture of security accountability. So I've talked about culture already many times today, and I'll continue to do so. But we do it because we want to enable our guests to shop with confidence. We want you to feel good about shopping at Target and feel joy and security when you're coming to Target. So we have 3 different teams within our cybersecurity areas. So one is cyber defense. And so you can think of that as kind of our 24/7, 24 hours, 7 days a week team that's watching for different alerts. We have different technology that will alert, like, hey, there's something here that you might want to look at. Something kind of strange, unexpected is happening that might need some investigation. So that team might look into that. Or different kind of fraud alerts might come up. Different gift card alerts might come up. And so that team really looks into any kind of defensive positioning with cybersecurity. The next team is our cyber solutions team. And so if you think about that, that's a team that they are building tools for the rest of our organization to leverage. So Identity Solutions is a team. They're a really big, important team. They build all the different technology in order to have people be able to build sign-in capabilities to all of their different software, for example, that I might be building for my tools for logging into point of sale, into the registers, or into a different call center login tool. So something like that. Or maybe file integrity monitoring, lots of different monitoring to make sure things are happening as expected, processes are happening as they should, reports are happening and flowing as they are expected. And then finally, cyber risk, which is the area that I lead, and we can talk a little bit more about that one in detail. So cyber risk, we deliver on compliance obligations, and so that's really compliance on the IT side. IT being technology. And then we manage our top risks while cultivating a culture of security awareness. And so we want to be able to deliver on business strategy while also delivering on security. So it's a both situation, not an either or. And so we have 8 different teams within cyber risk, which is the team that I lead. And so the first team is policy and risk. And so policy is what we base everything on. And so in order to get into the policy, you would be part of a framework or something that is an authoritative source known in the industry. So it's not Brenda Bjerke has an opinion on something. This is an industry norm, an industry expectation that we would operate in this way as a minimum. We can always go higher, but we could never not have something that's at the industry level. And that's quite normal within the industry. And so that's what policy is. And we make sure through annual training that everybody is aware of what's expected through their behaviors at the policy level. So there's lots of tools and resources available to understand what does the policy say, what kind of knowledge articles might I need to reference, things like that. We also have a lot of fun, but that is kind of our more serious policy section. Payment security. This is kind of in a simplified way to say when you are accepting credit cards or you're issuing credit cards, which we do, we have a Target Red card, and we also, of course, accept credit card payments. There are obligations that you have as a retailer in terms of making sure that there are certain security requirements met, and you have to meet those every single year and have proof of that. And you have some third-party assessors come in and audit you for that report. And so that's what that team does. And then we also work with different partnerships. There's also banking federal obligations as well. So we have kind of credit card contract obligations and then federal obligations as well within that compliance space. SOX IT is a federal obligation. It's a compliance, and it has to do with our financials. So, and the purpose of it is so that our investors, people who buy our stock, and are watching our financials, our financial reports, our annual reports, our proxy, our 10K, they can have confidence that the numbers that we're submitting are accurate. So nothing kind of inaccurate or criminal, for sure, no fraud is happening within our financials. And that's the purpose and spirit of the SOX IT compliance obligation. Vendor security is, we have within Target, we have lots and lots of vendors. Of course, you might think of, different soap companies would be a vendor, but not a vendor that would be within the vendor security scope of work. A vendor that would be within the vendor security scope of work would be a vendor that has a network connection to Target or has data that we want to be sure that we're protecting. Or maybe it just has a reputational risk. Maybe it's a web page that's co-branded, it has a Target bullseye on it. And so we want to make sure that it's secure and that vendor is following good security practices as well. And so that team will work through and talk about security with that vendor and make sure that they are following industry standards as well. Then on the right-hand side, we have a group called BISO. Now, BISO is a fairly new position within cybersecurity when you're talking about the lifespan of the cybersecurity industry. And what it is, it's a group of people who really go out and they develop really deep business relationships with people in the front lines, and they work to understand what business strategies are you working on. And they interpret to say, what are the top risks that are happening here? Because I'm going to engage on those ones that have the top cyber risks. And once I identify what those top cyber risks are, I'm going to make sure that we have the requirements met that will address any controls that we need to have in place for those top risks. And so we do that early on and we get in front of it so that we don't go live and introduce something to the public without the proper controls already in place. And so that's a really exciting role in that they get to know everything that's going on really early behind the scenes. And so that's a really fun role. Security training and awareness, also a really fun role. So I said earlier, we have the required training, and there is required training for annual training for everybody in the entire company, and for certain compliance obligations, there's required training as well. But we also have a whole lot of fun with our training as well. And so one example of this would be October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. It's at a national level. It's not just Target, it's across the country. It's October is Cybersecurity Awareness Month. And we really take that time to really celebrate cybersecurity. And every year we create a theme. Last year it was camping. and we had Camp Cyber, and every single day there's a different event. We had campfire stories, where we had external speakers, internal speakers come and tell stories around the campfire. Or, we had different fishing events, so that your fishing contests, like if you're camping, in a fishing tournament, and you win a fishing trophy with a fish on it. And so we send out different additional test fish that you can catch, and whoever catches the most wins the tournament. So we have lots of different ways that are really fun and people engage. And we have booths that we set up by the cafeteria, and lots of different games and things like that. Whenever we can gamify and make things fun, people really have fun while learning, and that's a win-win for everybody. Then external engagement is a group where I mentioned earlier, we see cybersecurity as a team sport, and that is true enough that we have a whole resource dedicated to this. This is where we focus on, where do we want to go ahead and build those relationships? Where do we want to have actual contracts in place? Where do we want to have our team members go speak at different events? Where do we want to make sure our team members are attending conferences? Things like that. And so we have really deep relationships with RH-ISAC, which is the Retail and Hospitality ISAC. ISAC is a group, industry group, where we can go exchange different ideas and best practices with others in the industry, in the retail industry. It's great because we have a threat intel group, we have a vendor security group, we have a BISO group, we have a risk group, we have a policy group, we have all these different groups, all within that one RH-ISAC industry group. And so whenever we have a question, we might go check with that RH-ISAC group and say, hey, we're wondering about this process. What are you all doing about this? Or what kind of best practices do you have? And so it helps to inform us beyond just policy, but how can we make this better? Then finally, the Cybersecurity Management Office. And so that group cuts across all of the teams, so cyber defense, cyber solutions, and cyber risk, to say, things like, what are our goals? What are our financials? But also we have training within cybersecurity for cybersecurity team members. We have some of the best, smartest, brightest cybersecurity talent in the industry working here at Target. And so we've asked those talented team members to say, hey, can you make some training to help, memorialize this and help our other team members understand all this experience that you have? And so we have a program called Cyber Plus Institute, where they've developed this training, and it's for Target team members only. And then, of course, we have cybersecurity insurance is another annual exercise we go through with that group as well. So lots going on within the cyber risk organization. Then one thing you may have heard about is the lines of defense model. Now, this is something not every single cyber security team will talk a lot about, but a team like Cyber Risk will talk about this quite a bit. And the reason we talk about it is because it really defines roles and responsibilities with different partners. And so it's important for us to talk about it. So we have lines of defense called first line, second line, third line. And so cyber risk is a second line in the lines of defense model. And so first line is the group that does the actual development work. So the engineers would be the people who are first line. Third line would be our internal audit group. So they're a little bit distant, at arm's length, in terms of auditing and making sure things are happening as they say they will. Second line, we're kind of in the middle. And so we're overseeing to say, engineering, are you developing the way that you say that you will and that you should? But if they're also having troubles, or we're finding that there might be issues, we can provide them with guidance and suggestions, as opposed to internal audit wouldn't do that. So that's kind of the difference with second line. And then we also have external audit and regulators, depending on the different type of activity that we're talking about. And then, of course, there's a governing body oversight. Oftentimes it will be like an audit committee or board of directors. So that's the lines of defense. But what I will say about cybersecurity for everybody is that it changes all of the time. It's really exciting. And you could really chase after a lot of different headlines, as you can see here. So there's lots of different things happening here. And if I made this slide probably 5 years ago, the headlines would be quite different. But cybersecurity is constantly changing, and that's part of what makes it really interesting. But it also makes it really important for you to understand, what are your priorities? I can't chase after every single headline that might pop up. I have to understand which priorities, what threats apply to my business, which threats apply to the applications that I have within my organization and services within my organization. Not everything is an impact to every application and service. And so I have to know enough detail and be in the detail of my business enough to know and understand what the different threats are. And how do I understand what the threats are? Well, that's partnership, that's communication and connection with maybe my internal threat intel team, or maybe it's an industry group, RHISAC, or maybe it's a different partnership. We partner with law enforcement even. So there's lots of different ways I might get that information, or maybe I just read about it. Lots of different ways I might get the information. But even ransomware, that is a really big headline right now. You almost can't read about a threat without reading about ransomware today. And why is that? Well, it's because really the business model has changed for the bad actors. And why has the business model changed? And that is because it used to be that, the bad actors and the hackers and things like that, they'd go after credit cards, for example. And now it's made so that it's hard to go after those things. We have point-to-point encryption, for example, at our point of sale lanes. And so it's very difficult to do that. It's near impossible to do that. And so not going to spend time on that. And so instead of going after credit cards, I'm going to go after what's valuable to you. And so by going after what's valuable to you, I lock you out of your own systems, and hopefully I get you to pay me money, the ransom, and that's how I make money. It's a business model. In terms of hackers. And so it's been very interesting to, kind of be within the long-term view of cybersecurity, to kind of see how that happens. But it's definitely changing every day, and it's very interesting in that way. The other thing I would say about Target is that it's really important to understand that we're all about team. And I would say that cybersecurity, not only at Target, but cybersecurity is about team. It's not something that you can go deliver really successfully as a one person. It's a collaboration effort within your own organization, within your own team, and within the industry itself. And so the other thing, though, that we have to deliver on is culture. So delivering a culture of shared accountability. We do that in so many different ways at Target, but one way that is kind of fun, I'll give you another example, is we always want people to kind of think like a hacker. And so one of the ways we do that is we say, okay, so a lot of people will send out phish email. And so one of the activities that you can do now is you can create your own phish. So here's some opening lines. Which opening line would you like to pick? Here's some urgent bodies, like you're going to get a monthly payment, or we're closing your bank account, or something urgent that will cause red flags, and then a closing. And so you get to kind of make your own phishing email that would be similar to what you might see within the cyberspace organization. Then finally, keys to success. So what I would say is, one thing to be aware of is when you're working, you are going to probably work around 80,000 hours in your lifetime. And so to me, that's a lot. And so to me, it's like important to think about, do I want to wake up from my alarm clock and say, like, I'm excited to get out of bed. I wonder what's going to happen today. Or I'm going to be like, I have to go to bed. I have to go to work. I can't wait for Friday. I'm too bad it's Monday, that kind of attitude. So one thing I would say is I really look for something, a role, a job that makes me excited for my 80,000 hours of work. It's a lot of time to spend doing something, especially if you aren't enjoying it. And so as a baseline, you have to have education, of course. You have to have high quality work. You have to have professionalism, and you have to deliver on your goals. Sometimes you might have obstacles in delivering on your goals. That's kind of business, but you'd work with your leader on that. You talk through and give all the right reasons and work through that. But generally, deliver on your goals and execute on the things that you say that you will. Those would be the baseline things that I think are really key to success. But what does it take to really stand out? This is my point of view. So my point of view would be, know which verbs describe you and lean into them. So what do I like to do? And let people know that, and lean into that's a winning combination, and that's great for you. Like, I like to deliver on this. I like to action this. Be able to speak to that and know yourself well enough to say, like, what you like to do. And conversely, I wouldn't advertise this as much, but like, know what you don't like to do so that you can lean into the things that you like to do. Get hung up on enjoying your work as opposed to, a title or what other people think and all that kind of thing. I think it's important to get hung up on enjoying your work, because it's your life, it's your work. You're going to have to feel proud of it. And it's as an individual, it's all about you, really, at the end of the day. The other thing I would say is develop ideas and share them with your leaders. Even if they aren't adopted, it's still really good to share your ideas, and people value that. And don't hesitate, like, even if you don't have every detail worked through, share your ideas. And if they aren't adopted, like, that's fine. Move along and move on to the next idea. But do keep sharing that creativity. Work well with every single person and work for the good of the work. This isn't really where your place is to maybe you'll meet your best friend, maybe, and maybe you won't. Maybe you won't have any friends. Maybe you'll have a ton of friends. That's not really the point of work. And so just working well with everyone for the good of work, that's professionalism. And that is really necessary in order to really do a good job at work and deliver what's necessary for work. The other thing I would say is learn always. Information really gets outdated. And so what you knew really well at one point and you were an expert in, eventually it isn't the superstar that it always was. And so at Target, we have something called 50 Days of Learning, which really sounds like a huge program and this type of thing. But what it really means is we value learning so much that you can spend 20% of your time, one day a week, however you want to kind of box it up. But you get to set aside time to learn, because we really think that you need time to learn, and we value it, and I value it too. And I think that anybody who wants to be in cybersecurity or technology, or probably most business areas, you need to continue to learn and enjoy learning. But if you're working in something that you love doing, that's not a problem. You'll love doing it anyways. And then help contribute towards a positive culture, really focused on business outcomes. Effort and activity is one thing, and a lot of times people will talk about that, and that's all good and well. But at the end of the day, what really matters is business outcomes, and business outcomes in a way that is positive and good for the culture and good for the health of the business and the health of the team, not just so that you could get it done. And so that's really what I think makes people stand out in a really effective way. So that's what I had to share with you. So I'll stop sharing my screen now. There we go.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for that walkthrough of your job at Target and the breakdown of what cybersecurity looks like behind a company. That was very fascinating.
Good.
You never quite realize how much it takes to keep a company's technology safe and their customers' information equally safe. So with that, I just have one question.
Sure.
What do you think are the most important qualities of a successful cybersecurity professional, and how can young girls develop these qualities?
Well, I think a lot of that I covered that on that last slide, but I think my main message here would be to learn, do well in school, and talk to people who are currently working in the area that you think you might like, so that you can understand the detail of what skills are most important. There's a lot of nuances within the different cybersecurity areas. Cyber risk is very different than cyber solutions, which is very different than cyber defense. And so the particular skills that we would lean into are going to be different. And so talking to people will be really important. And so I would just be really transparent and clear and honest about like what you're thinking about, and you'll get the very best advice from people, because what you'll find is that people love helping other people. And so I would just lean into that. The other thing I would always suggest, and this doesn't always come naturally, but have that person talk to you about the pros and cons. So thinking about like, what is great about this job and what is not great about this job? Like, tell me everything. And so say you're interested in policy. Do you see policy as an important foundation to a program? Well, that sounds great. Or do you think policy seems pretty dull? Well, some people see that way, you know, so it kind of depends who you are. Or incident management. Some people say like, oh, incident management, that's so energizing to deal with urgent issues. But other people would say, I would be completely disappointed to have my entire weekend disrupted after hours when it was just not even necessary because somebody made a mistake. So, you know, it just depends on what is exciting to you. And so I would ask whoever you're talking to ask them, what are the pros and cons of the job? And so that you can really get a good understanding. But also know that the job today that exists probably won't be the exact job that there like in 3 years from now, 6 years from now. You know, it changes. And that's what's kind of cool about cybersecurity too. But you can get an idea for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing your job with us, and thank you for being here with us today.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you.